Welcome to Jibambena Tech Festival. We are super excited to have you join us today. We are going to have a very interesting conversation with Olivier Madiba, a renowned game developer and very renowned in the gaming industry from Cameroon, and Ivan Greenwood, who is from South Africa. There are two creative directors who are going to talk to us about building an independent game studio, especially international renowned game studios that have been built here in Africa. We will hear briefly about Kiro'o Games, which Olivier Madiba leads, and then we'll also have a conversation with Thorsten, with both Ivan and Olivier, to discuss how the process was for them. But before we do that, we'd like to thank our partners, Goethe-Institut, Aga Khan Foundation, Alliance Française, and all of you who are joining us online. We will hear or show you a short video about Kiro'o Games and how Olivier Madiba did that. Please, can we roll the video?
Video game making studio in central part of Africa. In 2003, Olivier Madiba deeply wanted to make a video game. He then looked for weirdos like him to get on this adventure. That's how the trio was born. Olivier Madiba, Dominique Yakan-Brandt and Hugues Wafo will realize the very first version of Orion. Many years of hard work and commitment later, we built a team of young passionate Cameroonians devoted to a great vision of Africa. Kiro'o Games opened that way. And in 2016, Orion, the legacy of the Koryodan, is released on Steam. Orion is the very first role-playing game made in Africa by Africans and which highlights many cultures of Africa. It is an epic adventure that symbolizes the inner path of the leader. The game has received very favorable criticism from the specialized press and the 60,000 players to date. It is currently being studied in Hollywood for a possible adaptation thanks to its rich storyline, and many articles has been written about Kiro'o Games in media such as CNN, Forbes and the Wall Street Journal. Kiro'o Games is now on the road to expand into the smartphone markets and spreads the cultures of Africa around the world. Moreover, like the Japanese Kaiser, we will inspire a spirit of wall breakers in Africa that we call the Ubuntu. We give ourselves 20 years to ensure that today's African children become accomplished men and women who believe in themselves through a broad and cultural entertainment that inspires them.
Great, great. Thank you for that. I know you're curious to know how they made the Orion game. We have an extensive video about that on YouTube. Please go ahead and check the making of Orion on YouTube. But I know you're curious. You want to know, how does this game play? If you've not played it, you really have to. Let's see a short trailer about Orion. Please roll the video. Great. That is a video about Orion game. This game has received a lot of reviews globally. It's a really beautiful game. You have to actually check it out. It discusses a lot of African culture, a lot of, not just from Cameroon, but across the continent have been featured in this amazing game. The graphics are amazing. The content of the game, it's also very easy and interactive to play. Please ensure you check it out. I think maybe we can also show a short video around how you play the game. I know you're curious to know how that is done. We have a video to show you how you can play the game. Please roll the video. Great. I know now you're curious to play the game. You already know how the game is played. You know the name of the game. You know where to find the game. Please download and play the game. But I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you're here to hear from Olivier and also to hear from Evan Greenwood. I'll take this to a conversation that Thorsten, a co-moderator, had with Olivier and Evan Greenwood. And then we will take your questions after this. So please, if you have any questions, post it on the chat on YouTube. We will pick all the questions, and then after the conversations, we will ask the two amazing game creative directors your questions. So please make sure you post the questions on YouTube. Please, Thorsten, Olivier, and Greenwood, take over the session.
Hello, everybody. I'm Thorsten S. Wiedemann. I'm the festival director of Amaze. But this time it's not a Maze Festival, but it's Jibambina Tech Festival from Nairobi. And I'm super excited to be the co-curator of this festival. It's the first festival in Nairobi on games and playful media. And yeah, we have a wonderful program anyway. So, but this time I'd like to introduce two of my wonderful friends, one from Cameroon, one from South Africa. It's Olivier Madiba and Evan Greenwood. And they both run an amazing, cool, and successful African independent video game studio. One is from Evan is Freelives, and the other one from Olivier is Kiro'o Games. Is this right? Did I say it right? So, and I'm super pumped to talk for the next 1 hour about their success story, or the things what they've learned, also the failures. I don't know. So I'm sure there's a lot of things to share and also to compare, because they're coming from different kind of countries in Africa. And the topic is basically as well how to build from scratch an international, re-owned and successful independent game studio in Africa. And I'd like to introduce first Evan Greenwood. We know each other since a long time, I think in 2012. Yeah, 2012, we met each other.
First Amaze Johannesburg.
Johannesburg. Yeah. And we had a long time together. You also been to Amaze in Berlin as jury member, and you do awesome games. And we met each other basically with BroForce. That was the first game you created with your team. And I'm very, very excited to hear more about the story behind. And Freelives is also doing BroForce and Genital Jousting, Gorn, and what is the other one with the cricket?
Cricket Through the Ages.
Oh yeah, this is not released yet, right?
It is. It's up on Apple Arcade. It's been there for a little while.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. I definitely need to play it because I remember it's when I saw it, I think in 2015 for the first time, it was very, very raw, but it was already much fun to play. And now a lot of new content was appearing. I just saw the video. Yeah, let's start with the presentation from Evan, and let's roll the video, right? Or something.
Okay, just to mention beforehand, there's a little bit of mature content in it just because of the nature of the games we make. So just a bit of a trigger warning there.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Nice. Let's roll the video.
Hi, let me quickly explain what Freelives is. Firstly, what is Freelives in terms of its physical presence and its history? And secondly, what is the theory of game development that drives us? And lastly, how we've played a small part in growing game development in South Africa and why that is important to us. Freelives is an indie game studio of about 18 people based at the tip of Africa in the leafy suburbs of Cape Town, South Africa. After establishing the studio in 2011, we began work on BroForce, a game that takes all the explosive insanity and overpowered characters of 90s action films and pitches them against the forces of Satan. Freelives grew around the success of BroForce, which to date has sold over 2 million copies. We started BroForce as just two guys in a garage of sorts, and by the time we'd finished the game in 2015, we were a team of 12 people. In 2016, we simultaneously started work on two games, Genital Jousting, a multiplayer party game about penises and toxic masculinity, which was eventually nominated for an IGF Award in narrative, and Gorn, an absurdly violent gladiator simulation in virtual reality. And in 2019, we released a little game on Apple Arcade that we'd been developing on and off for a while called Cricket Through the Ages, which is a two-player game featuring an especially accurate history of cricket. As you might be able to tell, so far, we've been making games that have a sense of humor. So far, all at the expense of society's ideas of masculinity. In BroForce, notions of war are parodied, Gorn turns the glory of gladiatorial combat into something silly, and Cricket Through the Ages looks at the famously gentlemanly sport of cricket and juxtaposes it with a dismal view of humanity's achievements. That being said, it is difficult to nail down what a Freelives game really is. Apart from a sense of humor, they're all wildly different. This is because we try to empower each team within the company to pursue and advocate for their own vision. This is how we end up with games that look and feel as different as Genital Jousting, Gorn, and Cricket Through the Ages. We supported each team as they pursue their own unique idea through the development process. This wildly varying catalogue is a result of a practice of embracing creativity in any way we can. At Freelives, it's important that teams can try their ideas out, and do so without unnecessary pressure or crippling expectations. Failing fast and often is encouraged, as we see playfulness as key to finding good games, and we view detailed pre-planning of projects as a dangerous pipe dream. This means that we start a lot of games and make a lot of prototypes, but we are cautious and deliberate about which titles should be taken further. While we truly believe that making games should be a fun endeavor, we take the process of deciding which games we should produce seriously. In our experience, it can take a week to test an idea, but 3 years to commercialize it. This process leads Freelives to continue to produce surprising and interesting ideas. Terra Nil, for instance, which flips the city builder genre on its head by directing you to restore resources to natural ecosystems. Or Long Distance Caller, which was a VR experience we made in collaboration with artist Olivier. Being playful and creative sometimes means being silly, and sometimes that means spending time developing prototypes in Bali, Mauritius, or Hermanus. For us, game development is a lifestyle that an office environment isn't conducive to, so we are able to afford our team the great privilege of spending time with other developers from around the world at events like Amaze in Berlin. This is a big deal because as South Africans at the furthermost tip of Africa, it's easy to feel isolated from the greater game dev community and to be unable to share our experiences or learn from the experiences of others. Closer to home, we take the responsibility of the local game development community very seriously. not just because it's the right thing to do, but also because our success is so tightly linked to our local community's success. Freelives needs talented and experienced collaborators to thrive. We're located thousands of kilometers from the established game dev centers of Europe, Asia, and America, so we need our local scene to thrive first. Our most ambitious project in this regard is facilitating Playtopia, Cape Town's first annual indie games and immersive arts festival and conference, where South Africans have a platform to display their interactive creations and have them celebrated alongside talent from the rest of Africa and around the world. We also host the South African Game Jam, which encourages people from all industries to try their hand at game development over a weekend, as well as Freelives being involved in hosting many smaller events and providing funding for early-stage South African projects to help them get off the ground. It's taken a lot of time and money to pursue all these community projects, and we've had to do a lot of it in times when there's been little or no support from our government. But we continue to see the South African dev scene growing, and whatever our small part was in helping that happen seems to be well worth the effort. We look forward to a future when there is a supportive and widespread game development community across South Africa and the African continent. But until then, we'll keep making our silly and fun games at Freelives.
Thank you very much. This is a wonderful, wonderful presentation video. Do you want to add something to it?
I feel remiss in mentioning all of the games that went to all of the different amazes. I was just remembering when you mentioned earlier we met with BroForce that the first time we showed off the game was at a maze, Johannesburg, and we really didn't know how anyone was going to react to it. And the enthusiasm and energy we got from that was a big part of what drove us to continue and be really excited and fall in love with the project.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think I felt like I could have plugged a maze a few more times.
No, it's so visible. Thank you very much for that. It's fantastic. I also saw it on Wikipedia. There's also mentioned the Maze Festival.
Okay.
That's probably the only time when Maze is mentioned. But I mean, this is not. This shouldn't be a problem anyway. But yes, I mean, we've met and we've met at a lot of festivals and as well for the first time in South Africa, and this was a very, very amazing time. So from 2012 and 2017 when we did the festival in Johannesburg, and but I'm now very, very happy that you brought now the festival and the festival spirit of Amaze to Cape Town to build a much bigger community around it, and also because it's a local festival now. It's not a European festival. What is happening in South Africa now? It's a local festival, and you know exactly the needs and also the people you want to have in the country to talk and share, and because you know exactly. But before we're gonna start this conversation, and I'd like to introduce you to Olivier Madiba from Cameroon. And he's the creative director of Kiro'o Games, and this wonderful game. It was also award-winning at the Amaze Johannesburg 2016 for the most impactful game thing. I think it was kind of this title. It was, I think, we had 2 awards in Johannesburg, and the game is called Aurian Legacy of the Kiro'o. And please welcome Olivier. Please, your presentation.
Yeah. So, like I said, maybe I will have a full trailer video about the presentation. So I will explain a little bit our story, path, and vision as Kiro'o Games. So, video games industry in Cameroon is pretty young. We are the first professional studio. But there is another studio who, on all our respect, is Mukema Studio, which is they are more focused on 3D games. So how everything started with us? It started, in fact, we started video game design in 2003. In fact, in amateur sphere, where we designed the first RPG amateur from Africa, but it was really in how do you call it, the underground scene with visual from other games, etc. And then for like 10 years, we have to learn by internet how to manage projects, how to make game design books, etc. So in 2013, we started to search funds to make a real game studio, and we created one equity crowdfunding campaign, and we get enough money to start this crazy vision to deliver Orion, Legacy of the Corridon, which is the first African fantasy game ever. So far, we have 100,000 copies sold of Orion. We didn't make yet a lot of money out of it, but Orion gave us a name and a track record. So now when we go for investors and other partnership, we have a name now, so people know that we know how to make good games. What was very hard on this path to become a game designer in Cameroon was, of course, the funding, because fund a game, like Evan says, is always hard everywhere in the world. But as a Cameroonian studio, we also have to face the problem that on internet, when you were asking for funding, a lot of investors were like, you are a Nigerian internet scam. So it was really frustrating often to have to prove that you can do the game you want to do, like every game designer, but also that you are not a scammer because you are Cameroonian, so you are an internet scam. Even now, often we have to send links of press to reassure people that we are not a scam, we are professional game designers. And also you have the human resources. It was really hard at the beginning because people are not trained to code game and are not trained to make hearts for games. So we have to create a pipeline of training inside the studio to get this visual quality and gaming quality that we have now. And so when we first started, the idea was a little bit to be like Freelives, like making a game in Africa and sell it in US. Right now, we are more on the smartphone local market because we think it's the right timing now to make games for African audience, since there is this mobile money explosion around the continent where now people can make microtransaction for your games. And that's why now we have released our first smartphone games. It's a funny game this time about civil servant reality in Francophone Africa, a parody where you have to become a minister of a country starting from the bottom, and you have to go up with all the corruption and temptation of social life. It's like an African Sims, in fact, that we are creating. And we had a lot of challenge to turn the culture of the studio, because I've seen what Freelives is doing is very, very inspiring. And I've seen that they have find a way to make it fun, etc. But here is more like a 300. I don't know if you know the Sparta stuff. So we have to make people more in the mindset of Sparta, not with the fun, because people will laugh a lot between us, but it's more Spartan ways of love than joy and fun only. So right now as Kiro'o Games, we are trying to build what we call the most inspiring digital catalog in Africa, like games that will always make people feel that they grew up somewhere in their real problems with a lot of fun. The first smartphone game we are doing, we will have some picture that you will see. We try to do the most funny game in Francophone African region, at least, where people will always laugh when they play. So far, 7,000 downloads for the just early access. We think is on the good way. And we also have this vision to be more than a video game studio and to start to invest on other startups also. And beyond gaming, we are building a equity crowdfunding platform to help other SMEs, not only on gaming, but even in agro-business, etc. in Cameroon, to raise funds and make a better country, better Africa. So that's it. And I hope I will send you a lot of videos so you can insert it so people will see what we do. What I can say is that something I learned, but maybe I started the conversation, but something I learned is depending on your path, because you can have a path where it's not needed, so it's not biblical what I said. But I think the hardest part when you start to become a game designer in Africa will be that you will have to be everything. You will have to think about everything yourself. Like, you will not have the luck to also often just focus on your game. You will have to be the guy searching for the fun, thinking about the marketing, but also thinking about the training of your human resources. At least in countries where there is not already a community of game designers. And you will have, the training is not painful because of the technical stuff like Unity, etc. That's the easiest part. The hardest part will be on the human skills, because in Cameroon people are trained to lose. In fact, people are crushed in their mindsets, like you are a loser since you are born. Thing I did, you cannot change your life. And when someone comes in Kiro'o Games, you have like 3 months to make him get faith in himself again, to make him dream again. Like you can dream on the fact that you will draw beautiful things, because when you are a kid there, people insult you when you make drawing, like you don't hit this, stop this. So this is something that in the part of, I think most of Black African developers will have this problem. Like, how do you go against the human bleeds of your team? But when you succeed, you also obtain something very interesting. Like, there is a lot of wealth, if I can say, sorry for my English, there is a lot of potential in it. And that's how I think we can build a good community.
But I mean, then what was your first motivation then to make games, and how did you end up making games? Because I mean, when you grew up as a kid and you have no vision and no perspective, I don't know the situation in Cameroon because I've never been there. I basically just know you from Cameroon. And I don't know how the situation is there. So, but how did you get this kind of vision? I want to make games, and I also want to take people with me, and they should join me in the studio, and maybe other studios gonna open. And how is this gonna?
Yeah. In fact, like every game designers in the world, I think it started with passion, because you love playing games, and one day you want to offer this pleasure to others. So I think it's universal start for a lot of game designers in the world. But what makes us continue is a sense of duty and legacy for the rest of our community there in Cameroon. Because you should know that 3 weeks before the release of Orion, everything was hard as hell. Like, nothing was working, people were exhausted, and we didn't even know why we were making this game anymore. So I was sitting in the dark, in the night here, and I was starting to write something like, I quit. This game will never get out, I cannot make it, we are doomed, we will never make a good game in this part of the continent at least, and etc., etc. It was a huge bad text with all my frustration. And then, don't ask me why, a young guy somewhere in Cameroon just inboxed me, like he was living a very difficult time in his personal life. And every time he wanted to quit, he was like, oh my God, if this guy are capable to do a game in this country, I can make it too on my own dream. And then I realized that Kiro'o Game is not about us anymore. It's more a symbol of something. And we have to deliver good games so people will enjoy them. But a generation of African in Cameroon and maybe other part of the continent will know that it's possible to do this kind of great stuff, even if you are there and everything tell you you can't. So that's one of my greatest passions, bring back the opportunity and the dream in the mind of a lot of good people, good, talented African who struggle in this negativity around us.
Well, it's very positive. It's fantastic that you also have success with it, and that it works, and that you are kind of a figure, so somebody where people can look up and say, or also join and can come up to you, how is this working, and can you help me out, and how is the path? And I mean, also Evan, I mean, you are also a leading figure kind of position in South Africa, because through all the success you have and all the things what you do for the country and the community in South Africa, I mean, you are kind of in the same position, right?
Yes, look, I'd say South Africa in many ways has, doesn't have all of the problems that maybe Cameroon has. I don't think we have to deal with people not believing in themselves to maybe the same degree that Olivier is describing. But I do remember when we were starting out that, generally, I remember a lot of people around me not being able to explain what they were doing to their parents, that their parents would be like, this is not a real job, like playing video games isn't a job. And I think that there needed to be a few successes for parents to kind of get into their head, or the older generation, that this is worthwhile doing. And then in South Africa, I think where we can definitely see the community growing, and we can see people outside the community starting to take it seriously. There's a investment company, a South African investment company, that recently was picking up 2 games alongside some film projects and technology projects and other startups that they're doing, but they picked up 2 game studios and they want to invest in it. And that's a really exciting moment to be in, where it's like, this didn't come from someone that even loved games. This came from people that had some money and thought games were an actual serious thing. So it's definitely, it's come a long way from us starting out and having to explain what we're doing to everyone at every step, to this point where South Africa maybe does have a bit of a game scene, even if it's still quite small.
How is the situation in South Africa at the moment? So how many developers you have, and how many studios, and also schools? Because I think schools are very important. Maybe in Cameroon are there some schools in Cameroon? But yeah, but first the question to you, Evan. I'm always doing this kind of confusing interviews. How is the situation at the moment?
No, I know, Thorsten. I know you're a nice guy. I know you more country in Africa than me. So I know when you say schools that you're talking about game design. Yeah, there is school not in game design, but there are good school in programming, general, like software programming, and there are good schools in arts. When you have someone coming from general art, like painting, etc., you have to turn him into a video game artist, where he can start to learn a little bit more vectorial stuff. And it can be challenging, but yeah, there is school there, and there is hope, at least.
I think with South Africa, around the time of the first Amaze came to Johannesburg, one of the universities in Johannesburg, Wits University, got quite involved in that. And from there, they started taking a games course, like actually teaching game design and some game programming and teaching Unity and that kind of thing, pretty serious. And they've started to be, over the last couple years now, graduates, the last, say, 4 years, graduates have been coming out of that, have been keen to make games. So we're definitely, that was really the start of it. And there are more like tertiary education courses starting up now in South Africa, or have started up, and students are coming out of those with skills to make games, and having made a few games under their belts. It's still hard for them to all get jobs. is the problem. I mean, to answer Thorsten's earlier question, there aren't a lot of professional game developers still. It's probably in the region of 300 of us, or maybe 400 of us. I haven't seen the stats in the last year, but it's small. And now we're trying to figure out how to actually use all of these students, get them jobs, or give them opportunities, or find a way not to just have all of that education wasted. I feel like for a long while there was no one helping on the education side, and now we've almost got too much help, and industry's having to catch up with it.
And I think it's also very hard to keep the people in the country, right? Or are people at the moment leaving the country for getting jobs outside the country?
Yeah, so South Africans, I mean, there's a lot of the more educated South Africans do leave for overseas, particularly in games. It does happen quite a lot. Like, I know a lot of friends that were also making games around the time I started and now overseas. But there's a lot of advantages to doing it in South Africa that keep us around. Besides loving the country, there's the cost of living in South Africa is such that a little bit of money goes quite a long way. If you can get funding from overseas, the funding goes a lot further in South Africa than it would someone sitting in California or in the United States. So there's kind of advantages to doing it here, where we get to spend a little bit longer if we can get a bit of money together.
I mean, Olivier, I mean, you were saying that now you concentrate as well more on the African market. Is it because of the mobile market, or is it just as well because you think that you can reach more people in Africa than internationally? Because of your stories yourself. Yeah. Maybe your stories are not very, nobody is interested in the stories in around the world, you know, I don't know. So, but why this decision as well? Would be very interesting.
Yeah, I feel a little bit like Evan on this way, like it's cheaper to make marketing in Africa, because like if you have 100 USD, you can touch 100,000 people like for 1 week with your advertising on Facebook, in Cameroon at least. But try to do it in America, it start to ask more money. So the thing is, like I said, we think that we have a better timing now. 4 years ago, we were not interested to go into the smartphone market in Africa because there was this problem of monetization. Like there was not enough mobile money opportunity like now, where you can make a game and people pay you with their mobile money. And we keep a foot in the international market because we released the comic version of our game, and we plan to make a second game with a bigger maybe publisher, I don't know, but yeah. So we think African game made in Africa still have a chance in international audience, but we have to be aware of the marketing challenge that it will ask. Because when you go with the full African fantasy stuff in international audience, you have to build something from scratch in a very saturated market, for example. And that's something that we didn't knew when we started. So there is a lot of potential, but you have to be aware of the marketing. And it's better to get maybe a momentum in Africa with user base, cash to pay your bills, and numbers that international investors.
I came into game development largely because some Norwegians started a game studio. My experience was working for this Asian company, and they were making games for an international market. So I sort of went from there, and it was what I knew really more than the South African game scene. There's still problems with trying to sell to South Africans, particularly if we were trying to make games for the more like the more impoverished communities. because mobile data in South Africa is so ludicrously expensive. So people aren't going to download things. You've got to, like, all of what I'm used to doing on mobile is large file sizes and making games kind of as you know, as I guess Americans consume them. But then making a game and making it work on a much smaller kind of scope, or curtailing it to like very low data limits is not really even something I'm that aware of. And I don't think South Africa is even that far along with some of its with like monetization. The selling, a lot of people who have cell phones in South Africa just play free games, and that's it, and they never spend any money. And we could make a game or collaborate on making a game that addresses them, but there is no example of a game in South Africa for a local market that I'm aware of that has actually been able to earn money. And it costs a lot of money to make a game. So there's a few factors. Like if e-wallets became more popular in South Africa and people could spend money from their phones, we'd probably be able to do it. Or if data became more affordable, we'd be able to put games on there that we feel like making, or we have the skills to make. So there's a few hurdles. The international market was just one I was familiar with. Our first big game, BroForce, is just really about heroes, which we all got several years later than they actually appeared in America, but we got to South Africa, and I grew up with those, so I was familiar with it, and I felt there were people overseas, internationally, that would enjoy it too. And I'd love for South Africa to be able, or South African developers to be able to make more games for local audiences. There is one game that's happening in, well, they're trying to make it in Johannesburg, that is going a kind of somewhat African fantasy route, or it's like African sci-fi, futurist African, which is very exciting. And I think they're hoping that the market for African stories or African like mythos has grown, with the popularity of things like Black Panther and that kind of thing, that maybe the Western audiences or Asian audiences now want more African stories. And I think that they're betting big on that. And I think Orion, I think, is a bit ahead of its time in many ways. Like I could imagine a sequel to that, or a spiritual successor to that, doing a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you should do the second part.
Yeah, in fact, I totally agree with Evans. I think we were ahead of our times, but also we were not perfect enough. Like when you play BroForce is perfect in what you tried to do, it was perfect. You see, you didn't try it. You tried to do something fun with the reference of the 90s. I love this game, by the way. It was really, I was really surprised when they said that it was done in South Africa, so I was very proud too. Orion had a huge potential, but like I said, we had this mindset problem, like you had to push people too hard to make things great with the thing you wanted to do. So Orion is good, but not perfect enough. And when you go into Western audience, you have to be perfect in your niche at least. So Orion has a lot of flaws, and also, like I said, we also we missed the market windows. There was this huge place where the indie games were trending. I think it was where BroForce went out. But when Orion went out, indie games started to be industrialized too. Like, if you don't have the right publisher, forget about it. If you don't have the ultimate PR and new influencers, etc., the algorithms of social networks were already more bad and etc. So there was a huge timing problem, in fact. But for African audience, something that we had is why we don't go into African fantasy yet for African audience is because for social, the social analysis we have is the major part of people who own a smartphone now are between 20 and 35. So they are young adults. And I think we all agree there that people of our generation, 20 to 35, when you see the major part of Africa who are geeks, are rare. So it's like there is, yeah, we don't have a lot of geeks inside this generation. I think the most part of the younger guys, like under 7 or all under 13, are geeks now because they all know Naruto, this kind of stuff. But you have this gap of 10 years. If you want to make fantasy in Africa, go to the pre-pubert guys under 14, but they don't have smartphone yet. You see, so you have this timing that you have to manage. So if you make games for African audience, forget to make something with ninja, etc. You will not scale with that. You better go on something very social, like what are they talking the most about? And you know, the same thing, like I say, with horror movies. Like African people don't like horror movies because they already have enough horrors in their real life. So that's how it's hard to sell them a hardcore games. Like, why on earth will I go fight this huge dragon since I already have all my problems there? So you have to switch paradigm. And that's something I get when I was in a conference in Morocco with, how can I forget her name? It's a really good, really nice game designer. She worked in Assassin's Creed 3, and she said that, you know, every one of us trying to make Street Fighter 45, Skyrim 2000, yeah, but there is this huge patch of creativity. How about making games that fix real problems or that are just fun without all the epicness? And something popped in my mind and, whoa, she's right. And then you start to realize that, in fact, if you go in this way, you make something and seems like games, for example, or the thing you are doing, guys, with your resources. I think the seems like games are one of the top games that will be loved by young adults. So there is something, but you have to change paradigm. And that's something we are trying to do with Kiro'o. And I'm sure the other studio can start to see this road.
But you both have as well. You both have as well something in common, right? I mean, you're both doing funny, satirical games, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I think I said in the video, there are multiple designers at Freelives. It's certainly where I get excited is when there's a bit of satire, where the game has a point more than just being fun. I'm still trying to figure out how to make a real good one like that. Like I think in the presentation, there is a game that's been worked on at Freelives that is about climate change, or like reversing some. It positions the player after a climate catastrophe and trying to fix the world, and that kind of thing really does excite me when because I guess my interests have maybe shifted in my life away from being such a huge geek to caring more about the world and about the issues out there. And yeah.
I mean, Hero is kind of the same, right? I mean, goes as well in the same direction. Hero is kind of making people think about the situation and how politicians are, and as I understood. Olivier.
Yeah. Can you repeat the question? The question was for me or for Ivan?
I mean, your game, your mobile episodical game, Hero, right? I mean, this is as well. It makes you think when you play how the situation is, and also makes you laugh about how the situation is at the moment. So I mean, it's kind of a way to as well interact with the audience and with your mindset, how the world should be actually.
Yeah,
game, right? It's satire and also very meaningful.
Yeah,
satire is meaningful.
Yeah, in Kiro'o Games, we focus a lot on narratives, often with funny ways, often with dark themes. Orion was a little bit dark, but it was all about finding your way as human being. So it has that purpose. And the new game we do are more fun, more humoristic, but I think we are on the right path with the new one because I'm very happy of the result of the early access. Um, because people have this opportunity to be corrupted, very funny way. But when you see the discussion, someone showing me that he sent this game to his nephew, they were very corrupted when they played, but they also had to face bad consequences. And it's like having a lot of discussion with them about the corruption effect in long term. And since the game is not a moralist game, because we have a funny way to encourage you to be corrupted, but we know that the goal of the game is to discuss you on the long-term effect of corruption. And I think it has a better way to educate people. So yeah, and I totally understand even on the challenge when you start to want to make games with a meaning, with you want your game to really change stuff, and you have to keep them fun. It's very hard question. So I understand how it's hard. I understand when you say that the penis game is about toxic masculinities. So I know how it's hard to create in this, how to connect these two things.
But it is also the kind of game I mean, I still play games, and when there's a game that comes along and it really resonates with me, like it says something about the world that I can get behind. Like I'm actually, I want to go out and play your game about corruption. That sounds fantastic. But when it resonates, it does resonate with me. And I know there's more players out there like me. I'm not alone in this. And I think a lot of the games I've done have always been first for myself, and then for everyone else. And I want to play games that have something to say about the world. You know, I could play a game with some elves and goblins and dragons as well, but like that's not the only thing I'm interested in.
How where do you get the confidence from? So I mean, to also to make those games, and also to go to the team and say, hey, we have to make now this kind of game, you know, and everybody like, oh, I don't know, it's maybe not a good idea at the moment, or I don't know. So I mean, the situation is changing, and I mean, we don't want to have a very masculine world, of course, and it should be very diverse, and I mean, it has to have some kind of you must be very confident to bring this through, and also maybe to find a publisher as well. You know, I mean, it's also the thing.
It's hard sometimes with big topics. With you know, if you're trying to make a game that tackles something big, you can have it's very easy to get bogged down in trying to say the right thing, trying to be perfect, because you're so invested in this message. Everything needs to be perfect, and that's a sort of scary place to be with a game, because you also need to just make the thing, and you need to kind of have a bit of fun making it. And if you spend, you know, like lunch meeting after lunch meeting just trying to figure out the exact right way to like get the tone correct or the message correct, it's kind of the enemy of having fun and just getting a thing that's good enough out there. It's like a fine line, and you bring an idea to the team. They're like, it's going to be about climate change, and then everyone's got such big ideas about what that needs to be. When you know someone needs to you need to actually get through the hard work of just making the thing. Sometimes
also consultant people. So I mean, especially when it comes to climate change, I mean, you need a lot of books about, but maybe you also work with other people together. So also, like Olivier, the question would be also interesting for you. How are you going to work on this corruption thing? Because I mean, you need to do very good research. Otherwise, it's just like, just an empty story.
Yeah, so I am very proud, maybe more proud of this new game than Orion, because Orion is a lot about what I had in mind that people made. But the game is called Le Responsable. It's not yet translated because it's just an early access, but we will translate an update in March, and I will send you the link, Evan, so you can enjoy it in English. In fact, when we started this game, it's the first game of the studio where everyone has a part in it. And we had to invent a way to create a game a little bit like how can we change a switch of culture where it's not about me like a Kojima doing my stuff and everyone is following. So, but how can we make like a dynamic where when we start something, everyone feel that you have to invent a piece of this, and we finally get something with a lot of harmony and fun. And I'm so proud because the guys really succeeded, and we have more fun in this development than when we were starting Orion in Hell. It's more fun. We have our weekend now, etc. And how did we manage to do that? We made a lot of research. We made a lot of comparison of our own life because the game is a lot about the life of a lot of African people in Cameroon, Ivory Coast, in Francophone Africa, in fact. So, and we made a lot of Twitter stalking, if I can say like this. So we have a very, very satiric Cameroonian community on Twitter where you have a lot of social stories. And we were like, for 6 months, diving into this community to know what are the common experiences that the guys talk more about and what they will want to see in the game. And when people are playing, they're like, oh my God, this seems it's my life. I remember this kind of place where you are an intern, and instead of doing your job, you are just doing stuff like going to take the food of your boss, this kind of little stuff like, or this place where you are trying to find a file, like a presidential file, and the thing is not where it should be. Like you have to work in 3 offices to find the people who have your administrative document. And that's the kind of disorder, African disorder we put in the game with a lot of humor. Like nothing is simple, but people seem to know what is happening. And very fun. Even French people who have never been in Cameroon playing the game say, oh my God, you really catch this thing of Francophone bureaucracy. So I really hope when you translate it, you will enjoy it because it's really a pleasure to write these dialogues. And we have often like 30 minutes of meetings to know if the punchline is good enough. And it's really fun because, sorry, I talk a lot, but I really have fun in this process. There is a character in the game. When I wrote the story, it was just the receptionist, just the girl at the reception. Someone in the team, when he started to draw her, decided that she is the sister of another character, and then everything goes like, right now it's like one of the most favorite characters of the community around the game because she's so cynical. She's secretary, cynical secretary, knowing the secret of everyone, and always launching the right line on what you do at the screen. Like, oh my gosh, you are so bad guy, flirting with every girl's there. I hope your girl know what you do. And the player is like, this girl is looking at me. And so that's it.
So I'm interested in a thing you said there, because you said one of the, or if not the biggest problem you had was taking people without game dev experience, but also maybe without the right attitude towards like making things perfect or making things really good, and getting them to believe in themselves, and having to work at that in your studio. And what I'm wondering is when in this new project, where if everyone's now more invested in it, and so it's much easier to get that kind of passion to make things perfect out of people.
So one of the great things I changed was my way to recruit, because I think I lose 99% of the guy who make Orion first, because they were like, never again in my life will make a game. So, but they are great people because they really gave the best in this process. But when we started, I had a lot of self news, and I started to recruit like in you know, these elite programs across Africa, leadership programs, where
Okay.
so now when I recruit people, I have a form with like 20 existential questions about what is your purpose in life. Because what I realize is I work better with people who have um, personal goals better than just themselves. So it's always about people with a lot of savior complex. So we are like a club of savior complex here first, and a lot of people with emotional intelligence. So first, I make a better recruitment in human skill than technical skill. So I search people with this thing about, I want to make my family better. It's not about me, me, me. It's about someone else first. And then we establish some process to listen everyone. But I think it's the case, like I always try now to make people see their personal goal into the global one. So they know that it's not about, if you have to make greater hearts, it's not about me, the boss. It's about your first individual dream to see your heart respected at international stage. So when someone read that, oh my God, the graphic of this game are good, it's his personal dream that he can see. And that's why he can push himself harder without you to do it. So I think it's the greatest thing I've changed in Kiro'o Games. Only recruit people with personal dreams, bigger than themselves, and that are compatible with our own.
I mean, I think it's very important when you have a team and everybody has the ability as well to, and also the space to actually to express themselves and also be visible in the project by itself, you know, and not just like diving below the project and there is a big director and nobody else. So maybe it's something like that. What is very, very important in the skills of team building and also building a studio. So what are the failures you had, Evan? So by building a studio, how would you do it better if you had chance to do it better? I mean, it's working pretty well probably, but I mean, maybe there are some things which you think you can do better.
It's there've been a few times where we've had to change a few things about the way we kind of, one of the things we had to figure out which was a kind of this problem of success, was that people get weird around money, and we had some situations where we did contracts wrong, and then we had to change them because it wasn't making sense for the team anymore, or someone was getting way too much money, that kind of thing. And you know, in one case, we lost a collaborator forever, which is sad because he was doing amazing work. So there's just things about, like, I mean, that's a thing that really, I know I could do it better now, and I'm so sad that I lost kind of a friend and a collaborator who was very talented, and it didn't need to be that way. Everyone could have been together and been happy and gone through the whole project together. I think we probably could do a few more things like Olivier is suggesting, with just finding people that I think we've got fantastic people that we work with, though I don't know if we've always screened that well for emotional intelligence. And I'm not trying to single anyone out here, but I think we've hired a lot of people that are super passionate. We're able to find people that could kind of make games. So we met people at game jams. We organize game jams where people come and make things. And a lot of the people we ended up hiring are people who were motivated just to make games. They pitch up on a weekend at a game jam, and then you knew that person wants to make games and they're gonna push for making amazing games. But we kind of got to a point where we all want to make amazing games. We all want to make our own games. And I think I don't think I would change any of our hires actually at all, but I think we would, now what we have to do is just kind of teach people a little bit, including maybe myself, how to try and incorporate everyone's vision into the work and not pull in different directions. And I think we're figuring it out, but it's when you hire a bunch of people that are really motivated, it's sometimes hard to get them to be motivated to do all the same thing. But we're working at that, and I think we could have started a culture of kind of collaboration and a culture of less, like, I guess, prestige in being a leader earlier on. And I think it would have been a bit healthier. I think that's a thing we've kind of learned. I think we've also done a few too many hard deadlines. Like Olivier mentioned, with a lot of people after, BroForce was a very hard project. We worked on it for 3.5 years, pushing the point that you can't push people any further, where they've just had it and they're getting unhealthy and they're getting unhappy, and you can lose people. You can not only lose people from your company, but they can lose their passion in games altogether. And if they got no passion for it, they can't do it anymore. No matter whether they're your good friends still, no matter how much talent they have, if they're not motivated anymore because they're burnt out, they're gone. And it's such a precious thing that you can kind of, I think we've come close to injuring one or two of our staff like that, just pushing too hard, or even not pushing them, but they were pushing themselves, and not spotting it and not kind of supporting them as much as we should have. And that's definitely a thing I'd have tried to, I think we could do better now, and be more vigilant about not letting people work too hard, and certainly not pushing them to do it.
So something on my side that I think I will do really better is force all my, if I get back in the past, I will do everything to sign with Devolver Digital for Orient. Marketing, nuclear partner for this game. I think it will have been a very happy end on this side. So if I can go to the past, that one can be changed. And also I totally feel, Evan, when you say that it's sad when you start a gaming studio with friends and you lose them because of this hard part, because I lose some friends too. We were like, 8 founders of Kiro'o Games. We are just 4 now. So you can imagine the apocalypse we had during the release of Orion. And but something that I started to do better, like I said, is, I married now 2 kids, so I learned a lot about passion and the limit of passion. So it's like, I don't promise anymore to people. I have an image that when I recruit someone, I have an image like, in the Bible, when Moses said to the Jewish that, guys, when we go out of Egypt, we will go in a place where milk will go, we have milk and food every day. And this paradise vision where you take people in a desert and you come to the promised land. I will never do that again in my life. Like, promise to people that there is some way, somewhere in this life of our company where everything will be a promised land. Never again. Right now, when I tell to people, okay, guys, you are on board on the same boat that discovered America. We have never been there. I've never been in America in my life. I just have a whole scroll from a dark stranger in the tavern telling me that there is something beyond this ocean. So we have enough resources for 3 months, but I can guarantee you that we'll make 9. And we will win some days, that days we will, and we will lose. So I better have a culture of a cycle, like we'll make this game, it'll be a hit or not, but we'll move forward for something else. And it's better I better teach them to love the process. This cycle where you have patience, you don't have anymore, you have patience, you don't have anymore. And 3 days before the release of this yearly access, patience was gone. Like we didn't have any love for this game anymore. But when the game was out, passion was come back, like the feedbacks, everything. Everyone was, oh my God, we have made a good thing, and now the passion is there again to deliver the rest. And I trained the team in 3 years to have this feeling about it's normal that passion come and go. But what must stay is our discipline. And I think love, in fact, when you love your kids, there is no passion in changing, the caca, the boo in midnight when these guys have the how do you call the pants? How do you call it in English? This place where kids make their diapers. There is no passion in diapers change at midnight when this thing is. And I learned a lot becoming a parent about the fashion marketing that has been sold to us when we were kids in Disney, etc. So it's more this mentality I try to share with the new team. Like passion is good, guy, but we have to go farther to make things and to not fall into this depression of promised land. Because when you promise, we make the promised land. When people arrive at promised land and they see the Philistine, because when the Jewish arrive at promised land, it was not the end of the problem, but the start of another problem. If you don't have the right mindset, you start to depress and you don't fight for the promised land and all the stuff that we know in historical Bible story again. So this is more like the thing I try to do better now. Make people love the cycle and just not the line, the up and down. I think it's the cycle, and it's healthier for our psychological balance.
And sometimes the job is just a job. Like sometimes you do need to do the work because it has to be done, even if you're not feeling it. Obviously not pushing yourself so hard you're going to burn out, but you can't. Sometimes you have to get over just like a patch. Like this happens in our projects quite often. There's a patch and the team's not enjoying themselves, and sometimes it has been difficult. Sometimes you can mistake a lack of passion for the whole idea being bad when it's just a hill you need to get over, and a temporary setback.
I mean, it's also everybody, we're all humans, right? You have also kind of valleys and then ups, and I mean, everybody goes through this kind of stuff, and especially when you're a team and you work together, then it's always very good when you have an open eye and open ear, and also kind of try to balance this out and also listen to people when they have really kind of private problems, because sometimes they don't want to talk about it, and then just like to be there for them as well, because they spent almost most of the time with you making these games, and this is something what I also is very unique in your case, because people are living in the same place, right? Still, right?
There's still a few of us that live in the house, though we've started moving out slowly. It used to be this kind of boy band where we were all in the same house living together, but it grew up a little bit big, and I think we started wanting girlfriends and things.
Yeah, sure.
That's exactly what I would say. Like, I am sure the girlfriend motivation was the key of this decision.
But I mean, just maybe to the last thing. I mean, it's also I want to ask is about. I mean, you already mentioned it. I mean, it's about sustainability. How you actually can guarantee that this studio will run further? Because is it something like that you're always looking for new projects, or is it something like that you are under pressure? Because I mean, you have people in your studio, they want to have their salary and all this kind of stuff. Are you also making decisions you don't want to do because you have to get money in? I mean, it's the thing of sustainability.
I'll answer this quickly. We've been very lucky that we've had some successes, and money isn't our biggest concern. But I think we're a place where we are still having to look is at that motivation question. Like, sustainability also means the studio has to stick together. The studio has to want to continue to do this. A thing Olivier mentioned in his last, well, just a moment ago, was how his team got back motivation after putting out the early access and having people play it and responding positively and loving their work. And I think part of what we try to do to keep us sustainable, and it's become maybe harder as we've gotten a bit bigger. I think we might have lost our way a little bit, but need to try harder, is to really connect our developers with people who enjoy the games. Because I think we know we've got talent in the studio, but we also need them to be working and doing their best work and loving it, and wanting to be at Freelives rather than somewhere else. A lot of the people that work at our company could do it if they just left. And I think we're trying to have this environment where they're happy and they feel a sense of purpose. And a lot of that is just making sure that, like, when someone says something nice about the work they're doing, that they hear it, and trying to like, a thing that really, I think, kills some studios is working too long in isolation. Like, if you work on a game and no one's playing it, and you don't know whether it's good because no one's telling you whether it's good except for your mom, and you can't trust her, then, or your friends, but you can't trust them because they're your friends, you can be in the situation where you're really unhappy because you're just uncertain. Like, you've spent too long on this thing for it to fail now, because a year of your life has gone into it. And that's just a dangerous situation to be in, that we really try avoid, because it can hurt your ability just to make the thing that you're making. And then we also believe that if you're sharing your work and getting that feedback, you're going to find things out. You're going to find out useful information, like finding out that the receptionist is the favorite character in the game allows you to go, well, let's do more of that, or make her part bigger, where you might not know that until you've actually put it out there and for people to have seen it. So I think what Olivier does, as well as what we do, is try to do lots of early access, lots of fan engagement, and that helps us be sustainable in the sense that we can sustain our motivation.
Olivier?
Right, Orion gave us some money, but not enough to be in security yet. So we had some very dark times between 2017 and 2019. It was really hard to keep paying people. We had to make animations for local advertisers to pay the bills. And we started to get funding again in April 2019. And right now we have enough money for like 1 year, even with COVID, we had enough money. So it's better in our, we have some cool down in our brain about money right now, at least for the bills. But we know with the team that we have to use this time to build something where every month the studio gain enough to pay the bills. So we can have the right to continue to do what we love, and to continue, because I totally understand even when you say that at a certain point of your team, you have to make everyone build his own project. And that's something we try, but you have to get enough money so they can have the electricity to do that. And when you have a creator who have this appeasement, if I can say like this, like, okay, I've already done this thing in my soul is out, it can work better on other projects. So it's something where the sustainability of the studio is about making like cash cow games that will give us enough money to pay the bills, and then make the guys extend their own potential in personal projects, so they have this creator appeasement that now I can make other stuff because my dream is already out. My personal dream game is out somewhere, somehow. And then you start to train new people, etc. So we are not sustainable yet enough. We have visibility, but we are still on the path of sustainability in terms of money and human resources, like Evan said, the creative sustainability to make people keep loving to work together is really important. And something that I learned also about it is how to build the feeling of loyalty. I struggled a lot on that, and I had a lot of depression when everyone was coming and going at some point of the studio, because I'm someone very loyal. I give a lot of myself to my team, and it was hard because I had this feeling that, you know, it's like when you are being rejected in love. It's literally like where every deep part of the studio, when you are in a love studio and not a marketing machine, it's like you have lost someone you love. In fact, it's like and I struggled a lot with that at the first time, and now I try to empower guys that, okay, my job is to make you feel that I will do everything for you. I will do everything so you get your salary, you get this very good environment, you get this chance to let your inner talent go out, but you also have to give back. So give me back this loyalty I give you at a certain level. You're not forced to be there, but try to make a circle and try also to share it with the one depending on you. That's easy to say than do. It's really hard to make people start to have this, like, you have this thing that I give everything to you. I don't want you to be a bad guy with your junior because I've not been a bad guy with you. And that's something really hard because often you have bullies in a team. You have people with no empathy at all, and you start there. It's hard, but passionate also is really passionate to this human mass that you form as a team. And when you start to get, and I think at a certain point you start to become like a family with the kids and the mom, and that's really fun and also stressing.
Yeah, the future game designers of Kiro'o Games, right? Thanks a lot for sharing all this kind of insights and all the great work you do with the studio. But before we close and wrap up, I'd like to ask you, because I mean, it's also a little bit of a teaching lesson maybe for people who are interested in making studios. So what would be kind of an advice? Maybe you start, Evan, for the people who are starting completely from scratch and have no clue. And I don't know, they have a project and then they just want to bring it out. But maybe there's one or 2 points they definitely shouldn't do.
Okay, I start.
Yes.
So my advice will be have fun. Sorry, I get a call. So my advice will be, if you are very new, don't be too realistic, because if you try to be too realistic, you will never make a game. So hello.
Hello, I'm still here.
Hello?
Evan is kind of frozen, I think. So maybe he's coming back soon.
Yeah, sorry, there is someone trying to get me. do you receive me because I don't have you?
I receive you. I still receive you. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry. Someone was trying to call me. So my advice is have fun, follow your passion because that's the first engine when you start new. Try to get more than just game design skill. Try to learn project skill, leadership. Try to do something with what you have. Don't try to make Skyrim alone. Try to do something with amateurs tools. Try to use common asset on internet. The most important part is first to do something. At least do the path. In fact, and increase step by step. Make a team and increase. Like you have seen in Freelives, they started with 3 guys, and after they were 14, it's the same thing for Kiro'o Games. If I had been a very pro game designer from the beginning, I would never have tried to do this game because I was like, no, I know what will happen. Don't do this. No. So try, guys, and just be prepared to grow up a lot. And the funniest part is that when you will maybe succeed, you will start to realize that you will not make gains a lot anymore. If you are the founders, your job will be more about finding money so other guys make the game. So it's really fun to often joke about it in the studio. Like, in fact, you guys are living the dream. I am living the hell part of the thing.
So you miss it. You miss making games.
I miss some part. I'm still in the game design process, but not like the first one. I miss some part. I often see them enjoying the challenge of a bug and like, oh my God, I so want to be in this room right now, but I have to go and find and talk to these VCs so they can still make it.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. I mean, you also travel a lot around and also present and represent your studio. Is it like that? You always met very helpful people. How is the community to you? Because I mean, you were saying at the beginning when we started the conversation that people were thinking that because you're from Cameroon, it's scam. Everything what you're doing is scam. So they don't trust you. Does it change? Was it changing after your first project then? And people trust money?
A lot of things change. Right now, at least people trust us when we say that we make a game and a good game because, yeah, we have track record now. Also, there is a good community starting there in Cameroon in smartphone gaming. And internationally, like I said, Orionas is little community around the world. I am pretty surprised every time I go in Steam stats to see the number of Russian people playing the game, even if we don't even do a marketing in Russia, and they seem to love the game, by the way. And so I think when we do the 2, we will be very surprised of the lot of gamers waiting for it. And yeah, something also that Evan says is about that right now, we have changed the narrative in Cameroon because a lot of parents are now like, oh, so my kid can have a job with drawing. And this is huge for our the next generation coming, that they can, when their parents are like, is someone making money with that? They can say, oh, Papa, look at this studio, they exist, and they even received by ministers, and they are in good press, Wall Street Journal, etc. So it's changed a lot. So, but right now, what is hard is because people knew us like, okay, these guys want to make African game for international audience. Okay, but they also want to game now. Now they want to make smartphone games for African audience. Okay, why investors run out of the table is when we say, in the same time, we will build an investment platform for other young people in Africa. They are like, what? Why don't you just make games? And we are like, we are in Africa. If we just make game, it will not work like this because you have to make more like a Tencent studio than a Ubisoft one. And this part is like, you guys will never be able to make fintech and gaming at the same time in your continent. So this is the new, you cannot do it. but we are starting to get some traction. So they trust us a little bit more right now.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's crazy when you told us this. I mean, it's like, wow. I mean, what kind of stereotype is that? You know, it's horrible. I mean, it's horrible. So it's kind of we were talking about this scam thing. What Olivier was talking about in the first minutes, so that nobody trusted them that they actually can make games in Cameroon. Yeah. Thank you, Olivier. Evan is back.
Sorry about that. My computer froze for a second.
Oh, cool. Oh, cool. Good to see you back. Right. I mean, I just wanted to. Olivier already said something about, or gave already some advice to newcomers or people who want to make a studio. Maybe there are one or two things what they definitely should avoid doing.
So, I think the one thing I'd say starting out, especially if you're doing it in a place with a small community, is to reach out and not do it alone. It's very easy to be like, we're going to make a game and we've got this idea and we're just going to try to do it. And you know, even if it's a couple of your friends, but you're not necessarily showing it to the outside world, and you're not showing it to colleagues who are also trying to solve the same problem. If you can, try make a little community, try invite people around who might just be interested, people who just play games even, get them to play your game at early stages. Because I think one of the things that makes me the most sad is finding out that someone's been working on this game for like 2 years and they've spent all of their money, and then you look at it and you could have given them advice a year ago and helped them. Someone could have given them that advice. So I think it's, you want to just be searching out as, I think one of the strange things about games is we often don't really know what we're doing in kind of a literal sense. Like, you as the game creator know everything about the game, can see past all of the flaws, you know how it's all going to maybe fit together one day when you think you'll have the story ready or the backstory or whatever it is. But that's a very different position from the person who's actually playing the game. And it's easy to kind of mistake your knowledge about the game for being what actually someone will experience, which is, so what we try to do, and I think I've had great luck in this throughout Freelives, is just putting the game in front of people gives you so much information. You can learn so much faster about what things people actually enjoy. You can realize that the game's not that good and maybe you can't solve it. Start something new. Don't sink yourself on your first project. So I guess my advice is just don't do it alone. You're always going to be stronger together. You're always going to be stronger, even if you come onto the South African Make Games Discord. Just ask some questions there if you can, or form your own Discord or little community. But don't do it alone, because you're doing it kind of in the dark. You don't have as much information, and you might not even be asking the right questions because you don't know what questions you should be asking. So like, yeah, it's hard doing it on your it's hard doing it the first time, and a lot of developers in Africa are going to be trying to start something new. So just reach out for as much feedback, as much in some ways emotional support as you can get, because you don't need to be alone.
I mean, it's wonderful that you say that they also can reach out on Discord or whatever, maybe also directly and ask questions. Maybe as well, Olivier, would be great. Maybe when you are open as well for people, ask questions and you give some answers and advice. Because especially in this time right now, COVID, there are no festivals, there are no events, there's no gatherings and all this kind of things. I mean, it's very hard to actually to be motivated, stay motivated, and also doing the right things. And then also, because I know there are some people who are probably not so outcoming and also not going directly to the people and have a little bit of afraid and imposter and stuff like that. And so to everybody who hears this now. So I mean, go and write directly, because people are open, like Evan and Olivier, and there's definitely as well more people in all over the world in different communities.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people trying to make games are introverts. Certainly most of the people who work at Freelives are introverts. So it's not kind of weird to feel like you can't approach people. You just, you know, the chances are the person you're approaching, like me, is going to be weird too. Like I'm also like an introvert. I don't like approaching people, but I do want to help people. And you know, there's a lot of people that have knowledge. So I say, don't be afraid to reach out. The worst thing you can do is just be by yourself and feeling alone and working with like poor information because you're having to figure it out all by yourself.
So one last thing, because we're talking already since, I don't know, 1.5 hours. I think we can definitely fill 2 hours, but you also have other things to do. But one last thing, the vision, Africa. What is your vision? How will it be? Let's say maybe 2 years, your 2 years vision after COVID.
So 2 years is too short. I think things will not change a lot in Africa in 2 years because I don't know for you in South Africa, but in 2 years we'll have the same government, the same guys at the same place. But I am more confident if you tell me Africa in 20 years, because in 20 years we'll be like the oldest guys there. So we'll have more, at least we have to have more power to change things at least. And I think on the global part, Africa is a win or die. I mean, we have 20 years to build enough positive force to make our huge demographic young, really productive force on every side of the challenge of our humanity, if I can say it like that. And then we can have one of the best continents ever, where people will be young, where we'll have enough money to make stuff, and where people will be happy to buy stuff and live a very good human life, at least. But if we don't succeed, I think we'll have apocalypse. Like in Cameroon, I think we'll have apocalypse like, oh my God, I don't even want to think about it, but it's something that strives us a lot. Like you are asking, why do we bother to make a funding platform and not just to make games? Because we are an accident in Cameroon, like funding video game in Cameroon when you don't have traction. If we manage to do that, everyone who have a more normal project can do that too. So if we can scale it with the right person getting their chance, we can start to change the narrative, change the dynamics. And I think Africa, this is the vision I have. This is what I fight a lot for. Make Africa be the place where we can invent the next step after the capitalism. I think we have this opportunity there, but it's not a prophecy. If we do things right, we'll have this. If we do things bad, guys, it was nice to have peace with you without the working death era that is coming.
Wonderful. Yeah, we're gonna fight for it. That's for sure. I also want definitely to meet you in Cameroon, that you're gonna show me around what's going on there, and so it would be great. It would be a pleasure to be there and learn more from Cameroon and also from the game development community there. Thank you very much, Evan. What is your vision 2 years from now, or maybe as well 20?
So I'm not gonna predict as far in the future. I think there's some things I'd like that you know, some small improvements that I'm hoping do come around. I'm hoping we can connect up some of the African countries a bit better in terms of maybe having more or making it possible for more people to come visit South Africa, or South Africans visit outside of South Africa. I'm hoping we can form a few more connections across the continent in the next few years. I think there's some amazing work being done in this regard by a few people. So I'm hoping that happens. And I think another thing I'd be excited for is a bit more, say, I guess, African fantasy kind of games coming out, a bit more African culture being exported to other places and being successful. I'd be very excited about that, because I think it's something that people outside of Africa are realizing that there's actually something really cool here, and it, you know, it's something that maybe a few people have the opportunity to export to the rest of the world and make a huge success out of. And yeah, I'd like to see more, and I'd like to see more funding opportunities. I think there are things happening in South Africa, and I think there's some countries that are getting there. Maybe 2 years is too soon, but I'm hoping game development is a bit more accepted around the world. Around the African continent, and that there's more money put into it, especially as local markets become trailblazed by people like Olivier.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's very important to have this kind of festivals and events, also like Jibambe na Tech. So what is the first time this year? So usually it should be physical. Everybody should be invited to Nairobi as well. Mm-hmm. You both should be invited to Nairobi and meet the scene and hang out with the people there. Playtopia is not happening this year, but hopefully next year. It would be very, very cool to bring it back. It's a wonderful festival. Everybody should see it. How is it in Cameroon? Is there a festival or anything going on or very close?
No, I think we don't have a lot of COVID there, so there is not really a festival, but so there is no the confinement, so people are not forced to stay at home. But we don't have a lot of events because of the global economic crisis. Took a lot of Cameroonian economic down too. So people are not really moving right now, but at least we can go out of home. At least.
But you should maybe think about as well, when you have a funding platform or building something like that, maybe you should also attach a little game festival.
Yeah, in fact,
game festival, and everybody can come then to your place. So and
in fact, there is not many gaming festivals, but there is a lot of guys trying to organize gaming jam and gaming gaming conference. And it started to boom. I was even surprised that there is a TV show about gaming now in some channel there. So something started to pop, and we'll try to support as much as we can. And yeah, I think for the funding platform, if COVID is not if it's not the end of the world in 2021, we'll try to be more connected with people on the ground for the funding and also for the gaming part.
Okay, thank you very much. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you, Olivier. Thank you, Evan, for joining that panel.
Thank you for that panel. That was a wonderful discussion that we had. Thank you, Olivier Madiba, and thank you, Evan Greenwood, for such insightful discussion. We have heard a bit more about Orion the game and about Olivier's company, Kiro'o Games. I would like to just run the video one more time so that now we can put everything into perspective. So kindly just run the video.
Kiro'o Games. This is the first video game making studio in central part of Africa. In 2003, Olivier Madiba deeply wanted to make a video game. He then looked for weirdos like him to get on this adventure. That's how the trio was born. Olivier Madiba, Dominique Yakanbrand and Hugues Wafo will realize the very first version of Orion. Many years of hard work and commitment later, we built a team of young passionate Cameroonians devoted to a great vision of Africa. Kiro'o Games opened that way. And in 2016, Orion, the legacy of the Koreodan, is released on Steam. Orion is the very first role-playing game made in Africa by Africans and which highlights many cultures of Africa. It is an epic adventure that symbolizes the inner path of the leader. The game has received very favorable criticism from the specialized press and the 60,000 players to date. It is currently being studied in Hollywood for a possible adaptation thanks to its rich storyline, and many articles has been written about Kiro'o Games in media such as CNN, Forbes and the Wall Street Journal. Kiro'o Games is now on the road to expand into the smartphone markets and spreads the cultures of Africa around the world. Moreover, like the Japanese Kaiser, we will inspire a spirit of wall breakers in Africa that we call the Ubuntu. We give ourselves 20 years to ensure that today's African children become accomplished men and women who believe in themselves through a broad and cultural entertainment that inspires them.
That is about Kiro'o Games. There's a lot of things we need to discuss, from building communities, about festivals like this one, about, the health of developers we work with in our teams. We also would like to discuss more about culture and things like this. But just before we get into the question and answers, we would just like to run the video again about Orion game. And then we will come back to the question and answers. In case you have any questions, please post it in the chat. Looks like a very interesting game. I know you're wondering, how was this game made? I think if you're like me, you're curious, you want to see how it was done, you're about to get that experience. Let us see the making of Orion, the game. Please roll the video.
Hello! If you are of those wondering where comes the game Orion from, or if you simply wish to see the backstage of the development of such game, follow us please, we'll show you around. Orion, Legacy of the Koreodan, has been developed here, in Cameroon. You know, the mini Africa country in the center of Africa. And all this alchemy happened more precisely just here.
Bonjour, bienvenue à Kiro'o Games, le premier studio de jeux vidéo d'Afrique centrale. Vous voulez savoir comment a été créé et réalisé Orion l'héritage des Coriodan? C'est par ici, suivez-moi. À présent, vous êtes dans la salle où toute l'équipe technique a travaillé très dur pour vous offrir ce premier opus de la saga Orion, l'héritage des Coriodan. Mais il faut savoir, Orion, c'est surtout une très grande aventure qui a commencé en 2003, donc il y a 13 ans de cela.
Well, all this was first a dream from a passionate and reckless teenager.
Alors, comment tout a commencé? C'est Olivier qui a eu l'idée au départ folle de se lancer dans un jeu vidéo. Enfin bon, quand lui l'a eu, à mon avis, je l'ai eu aussi en parallèle, mais c'est lui qui a concrétisé les choses. Et on était encore au lycée, en tout cas moi j'étais encore au lycée. Une amie à nous a fait nous rencontrer, lui il cherchait des personnes folles comme lui pour son projet et moi j'attendais une opportunité de me lancer là-dedans aussi. Donc on s'est bien retrouvés. C'était un rêve au départ de la part d'Olivier, mais quand je l'ai rencontré, il avait déjà énormément avancé, il avait déjà beaucoup écrit, il avait déjà conceptualisé plein de choses, il avait déjà commencé à toucher au moteur, RPG Maker, et voilà, quand on s'est rencontrés, les choses ont donné tout de suite, on a eu les mêmes idées presque. Et voilà, c'est comme ça que, au final, Orion 0.0 est né.
It's once in college that Hugues and I, Dominique, teamed with Olivier. He had already quite a clear idea of what he wanted, as for the scenario than for the gameplay at that moment. But there was still a lot to do to finally have Orion 0.0, the first Orion game.
Alors oui, tout s'est fait sur RPG Maker XP au départ, ou 2003, je ne sais plus très bien. Et RPG Maker en gros c'est un petit programme libre de droit je pense, qui permet de réaliser, de rassembler facilement des assets limités et petits pour réaliser une petite histoire, un monde interactif. Et faire un RPG en fait. C'est un truc fait par des fans pour les fans en fait. Et bon, les difficultés qui vont avec le développement, ben, déjà il fallait tout écrire. Heureusement Olivier avait fait une très grosse partie du boulot de ce côté-là. On a principalement eu juste à tweaker les choses avec Hugues. Sinon bien sûr il y avait les contraintes techniques en termes de taille de fichiers, ce genre de choses. Les choses, c'était beaucoup de pixel art. Moi, on n'avait pas de tablette graphique ou ce genre de choses, donc je dessinais tout à la souris, dans Paint, pour faire des animations plus ou moins fluides dans Paint. Et en plus de ça, Olivier avait plein d'idées de gameplay un peu révolutionnaires par rapport à RPG Maker. Et donc, on a dû chipoter pas mal au programme, surtout lui. Notamment pour avoir des combats dynamiques avec des animations qui se jouaient, on se retrouvait avec on n'arrivait pas à faire disparaître les personnages de base pendant que les animations se faisaient, alors il y avait des dédoublements de sprites à l'écran qui se faisaient, mais bon, au final on s'y est vite fait, en plus on a sorti une petite explication débile là, pour justifier ça. On a réalisé des cinématiques aussi dans RPG Maker. Ça c'était des nuits blanches sur une cinématique pour la rendre bien péchue. Et on avait déjà conceptualisé les fusions d'Orion différents éléments dans Orion. Et Olivier voulait absolument qu'il y ait l'implémentation de tout ça dans Orion, la première version du jeu. Donc on s'est retrouvé avec, je crois, 64 techniques différentes de fusion, de trucs, machin. Donc d'une certaine façon, on s'est bien amusé, on s'est bien fait chier, mais c'était un peu la passion qui primait surtout en ce temps-là. Et au final, les gens ont bien aimé. On a eu un gameplay assez novateur pour ce qui se fait d'habitude sur le soft, RPG Maker. Et on avait même des situations de combat avec des événements spéciaux, des pourcentages de chances d'événements avec des contres, des reprises. Génial. Voilà. Et en parallèle, on avait la réalisation d'illustrations par dièse qu'on mettait en ligne pour tenir en haleine notre petite communauté de fans d'antan. Voilà, en gros c'était ça le développement.
Orion Zero was quite welcomed by the small community of gaming amateurs that could discover it, and that gave us some pride. Then time has passed. We separated but were still driven by this dream of ours. And with time, Olivier dusted the project and decided to call us back for this adventure, but now on a much more ambitious way.
Au départ, c'était pour nous plus un challenge personnel qu'un projet concret. Hein. Donc on n'attendait pas forcément de retour fou, devenir connu, des célébrités après ça, non, clairement pas. Mais une fois qu'on a sorti le jeu, Olivier prenait le temps d'aller sur les forums, jeuxvideo.com, des forums spécialisés en RPG Maker et RPG, plein de fans comme ça. On s'est créé une petite communauté qui au final a apprécié notre jeu. Donc on était très fiers au final de ce qu'on a fait. On n'a pas pu finir le jeu. Mais on est quand même arrivé à un jeu d'une vingtaine d'heures, avec des quêtes annexes, donc vingtaine d'heures comprenant les quêtes annexes. Et ça, donc, de notre point de vue, pas très ambitieux sur le projet, il a plus ou moins fonctionné. On a eu des vues, on a eu des retours intéressants. Mais bon, c'était clairement pas suffisant C'était clairement pas suffisant en termes de reconnaissance pour partir sur un travail concret avec ça, évidemment. Donc, au final, on a dû se séparer et c'est plus tard qu'on s'est retrouvé avec des compétences plus spécialisées, plus diverses à la fois, et qu'on est reparti à l'aventure sur Orion.
In 2013, we were not the foolish dreamers from Orion Zero anymore. Olivier, well aware of the challenges and costs that represent the creation of a game, surrounded himself with a team of passionate people and we boosted each other with motivation.
Donc on est en 2012 et on a plein d'idées, plein de concepts dans la tête, mais pas de sous pour l'instant, pour réaliser nos idées. Donc il va falloir trouver les gars qui ont ces sous-là. Mais le fait est que approcher des personnes au Cameroun en particulier, puisque c'était notre environnement direct, approcher des personnes au Cameroun pour leur dire que vous voulez ouvrir une entreprise dans des domaines connus, c'est déjà pas évident. Si vous les approchez en plus pour leur parler d'un domaine encore inconnu comme le jeu vidéo, ça c'est un double défi. Et on ne parlait pas de lancer seulement une entreprise, on parlait de lancer une toute nouvelle industrie. Donc il fallait vraiment marquer le coup dès le départ. Voilà comment nous vient l'idée d'organiser des conférences. Parce que attaquer les personnes individuellement, ça allait nous prendre du temps. Et on n'avait pas tout notre temps non plus. Donc il fallait marquer le coup vite et bien. Mais à ce moment-là, il faut des sous même pour organiser des conférences. Et ces sous-là, on les a pas. Donc on se décide d'approcher le ministère des Arts et de la Culture. On réussit à obtenir l'audience avec Madame le ministre, à l'époque c'était Madame Amatotomouna, qui nous reçoit dans son bureau. On lui présente évidemment le projet et à notre grande surprise, elle a tout de suite accroché. C'était même au-delà de nos espérances. On s'est tout de suite compris sur la vision qu'on avait par rapport au jeu vidéo, au-delà du fait qu'on voulait créer un jeu. Elle a complètement adhéré sur la vision. Et quelques temps après, voilà comment on obtient le parrainage du ministère pour se lancer dans le projet. Non seulement on a obtenu le parrainage, mais on a également obtenu les financements nécessaires pour pouvoir organiser des conférences. Mais ce parrainage nous a également apporté la crédibilité dont on avait vraiment besoin pour convaincre nos vis-à-vis que le projet était viable, que le projet était porteur. Donc ça nous a apporté cette crédibilité si bien que, parce que Madame la ministre s'est personnellement déplacée pour les conférences, ça a amené beaucoup de personnalités de la presse, que ce soit la presse écrite, que ce soit la presse télé, soit le journal télé. Donc ça a drainé beaucoup de journalistes et ça a créé une certaine émulation qui nous a permis sur laquelle nous avons surfé pour trouver nos investisseurs. On a eu une première conférence à Yaoundé le 10 mai 2012 et une seconde 7 jours plus tard à Douala. À Yaoundé, la conférence était surtout pour parler du concept. Et là, Madame le ministre avait fait elle-même le déplacement, ce qui a fait qu'il y a eu beaucoup de journalistes qui sont venus. Ça a permis plus tard de faire le relais. Et à Douala, c'était beaucoup plus sur le plan économique, parce que Douala, c'est la capitale économique. Et là-bas, on parlait surtout du business. Qu'est-ce que ça rapporte de faire du jeu vidéo? Et grâce à cette conférence, on a pu se faire un maximum de contacts. Et que ce soit sur le plan de la presse, que ce soit sur le plan des investisseurs potentiels. Et tout ce beau monde, il fallait pouvoir les suivre une fois que les conférences étaient passées. Et là, c'est là que résidait le véritable challenge. Parce qu'au bout des conférences, on pouvait être milliardaire s'il fallait. Si on pouvait être milliardaire, grâce aux promesses, on serait milliardaire après les conférences. Mais il fallait encore pouvoir convaincre ces personnes de mettre effectivement leurs sous dans le projet. Alors, comment est-ce que les conférences se sont préparées? Je dirais que ça s'est fait vite parce que nous avons pu obtenir le financement, je crois, 2 semaines avant l'événement. Et en 2 semaines, on était 4 à l'époque. En 2 semaines, avec une équipe de 4 personnes, nous avons dû organiser 2 conférences qui allaient réunir une personnalité de l'État et plusieurs autres personnalités de l'État à Yaoundé et une autre à Douala. Nous avons dû organiser ces 2 conférences en 2 semaines avec une équipe de 4 personnes. Donc, pour dire que le périple de Kiro'o Games en matière de défis, de challenge, ça a commencé très vite. Ça a commencé très vite. On s'est très vite habitué à ça. Bon, maintenant, qu'est-ce qu'on a eu comme résultat? Qu'est-ce que les conférences ont donné comme résultat? Je dirais en gros que ça a été le déclencheur, en réalité. Ces conférences ont été le déclencheur, c'est de là que tout est véritablement parti. Parce que ce soit à Yaoundé comme à Douala, nous avons pu réunir près d'une centaine, voire plus de personnes. Et toutes ces personnes, c'était des cartes de visite que nous avons pu obtenir et des personnes que nous avons pu approcher après de manière beaucoup moins formelle pour discuter des modalités d'investissement, pour discuter de comment est-ce qu'ils pouvaient soutenir le projet. C'est de là que tout est parti. En fait, nos premiers investisseurs me viennent de cette conférence-là. Donc pour les résultats directs, c'était de multiples articles dans la presse, forcément, puisque la presse avait fait les déplacements. C'est grâce, par exemple, c'est juste après les conférences que nous avons eu des articles dans l'un des journaux, sinon le journal le plus important du pays. Donc ça a permis d'avoir un rayonnement un peu national. Donc, juste après, le projet Kiro'o Games est devenu un projet connu. Donc en 2012, quand on décide de se lancer dans l'aventure, que ce soit pour tester notre idée, que ce soit pour trouver des investisseurs, des personnes qui pouvaient mettre des sous dans l'aventure, ou que ce soit pour échanger sur le comment développer, le comment rendre le produit viable, il nous fallait attirer l'attention de tout ce beau monde-là. Et là, vu que nos moyens étaient limités, nous avons opté pour une stratégie nous avons utilisé Internet au maximum, une stratégie de proximité. C'est-à-dire que faire en sorte que nos futurs consommateurs soient au centre de ce qu'on était en train de produire. Donc il fallait faire connaître le projet. On a utilisé, dans la plupart des cas, les réseaux sociaux qui ont été d'une très grande utilité dans cet objectif-là. Nous avons également utilisé la méthode traditionnelle, c'est-à-dire le bouche à oreille. Il fallait parler à nos proches qui nous recommandaient à d'autres personnes, et on allait de personne en personne, on parlait du projet autour de nous. On utilisait au maximum nos connaissances, que ce soit au niveau professionnel comme au niveau de la presse, pour faire connaître le projet. S'agissant des difficultés que nous avons eues après les conférences principalement, la principale difficulté qu'on a eue, c'était de transformer l'intérêt qu'on avait suscité en investissement réel. Là était le véritable challenge, parce qu'on a eu beaucoup de promesses, on a eu beaucoup de personnes qui étaient intéressées, mais entre le moment où quelqu'un vous dit je suis intéressé et le moment où il vous dit bon voilà je me lance, il y a parfois un décalage plus ou moins important. Donc c'était la principale difficulté qu'on a obtenue. Donc on finit les conférences, on suscite un maximum d'intérêt, mais on n'a toujours pas de sous pour se lancer.
But we fear not. Here in Kiro'o, we have faith.
Comment est-ce qu'on réussit à avoir finalement les sous? Je dirais que ça se résume à un mot: crédibilité. C'est en fait ce qui a fait toute la différence, parce que nous avons compris très tôt qu'il nous fallait démontrer la crédibilité de notre projet sur tous les plans, que ce soit en termes de retour sur investissement, que ce soit en termes de gestion, que ce soit en termes des personnes même qui allaient travailler dans le projet. Il nous fallait démontrer un maximum de crédibilité pour convaincre les personnes de mettre les sous dans notre projet. Il ne faut pas oublier, comme je le disais au départ, qu'on est dans un secteur inédit, et en plus qu'on est des Camerounais. Les Camerounais en général n'ont pas très bonne fortune en matière de gestion des sous. Donc on avait vraiment intérêt à démontrer un maximum de crédibilité. Mais je dirais que pour obtenir des sous, et effectivement le financement traditionnel n'a pas fonctionné pour nous, ce qui ne nous a pas surpris vu le domaine dans lequel on était, parce qu'on a approché les banques, ça n'a pas marché. Donc on a décidé de faire comme, de se lancer à l'aventure, de chercher, de ratisser l'âge. Et les conférences ont conclu à cela. Ratisser l'âge pour trouver les personnes à l'oreille attentive, pour trouver les personnes sensibles à ce qu'on voulait faire. Donc c'était sur internet, c'était par des connaissances qui avaient des connaissances, donc on ne négligeait aucune piste. Mais la difficulté que nous avons surtout, c'était de trouver la première personne qui allait mettre les sous dans le projet. Ça a été le plus dur, parce qu'une fois que ça a été fait, le reste a suivi.
All this transparency, this work, and these conferences gained us some investors, and we raised funds that helped us to gain some equipment later. Because to make a video game like ours, you need a lot, you know? Desks, of course. Computers too, obviously. Good graphic cards, what's needed to draw, some sound editing material, controllers, the internet, and many more. Oh, and you need a team, of course. One doesn't create this kind of video game alone.
Ah, s'agissant de l'équipe, il y en a de bien bonnes concernant l'équipe. Moi, je résumerais ça en deux. Je dirais en gros qu'on a eu deux équipes sur le projet. La première équipe, c'était l'équipe de l'espoir, hein, on va dire. L'équipe de la précarité aussi. Ça, c'était au tout début, quand on se lançait. Il n'y avait pas encore les financements. On vivait presque sur des dons. Et on bossait tous en bénévole. C'était une équipe assez dynamique, assez engagée. Donc, grâce à cette équipe, on a pu produire les premiers visuels de 2013, 2012, 2013, comme on les appelait. L'ambiance était quand même assez bonne, même s'il n'y avait pas de sous. On travaillait bénévolement, mais c'était assez enrichissant.
Thank you.
Bon.
Thank you so much for that video. I know you would like to watch all of it, so please head on to Kiro'o Games YouTube channel, or you can just search making of Orion the game, and you can watch the entire video. Would like to thank Ivan and Olivier for joining us and for sharing their experiences, but more importantly also for giving us this exclusive opportunity to hear how it's been developing such amazing African-made international games, but also sharing, insights about teams, about the different things that they've been facing in their journey to where they are currently. We really cannot thank them enough. We know this conversation will motivate a lot of young developers or people generally in the gaming industry in Kenya, but certainly across Africa. So for your questions, don't worry, we will make sure those questions are answered at some point of this festival. So keep following us on YouTube. There's something interesting coming up at 4:30. You will not want to miss that. So there's a format that was invited by Thorsten Wiedemann and their Maze Festival called Hyper Talks. So these Hyper Talks are basically 5 minutes. You have an idea or you have a game, but you want people to give you feedback about what you're working on. You also want, constructive criticism around what you're working on. We'll be having that for the first time at Jibambe Tech Festival in Kenya. You do not want to miss that. We have some really cool, amazing games and ideas that you want to hear about, and to definitely also give them feedback. Follow us on our social media channels, but also please ensure you're back here at 4:30 for Hyper Talks in this channel. You get to hear about these amazing games and ideas. So I will see you again at 4:30. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye. Thank you.